Are you gonna wander or are you gonna stay?
I'm gonna stay.
Then you can just
Okay, perfect.
I'll give you a 5-minute warning after 10 minutes so you can finish your script and then do Q&A. But you have all the time.
Okay.
All right. Please give a warm welcome to Addie.
Good afternoon. My name is Adeline Hetzel, and today I will be discussing the body image of adolescents in Vermont's Northeast Kingdom in terms of its relationship to generative AI and social media. Raise your hand if you're active on social media. All right, take a look around and notice how many people have their hands up. All right, you can put your hands down now. Many of you are actively on social media on a regular basis. You are constantly exposed to photos, videos, and other media showing people whom you may or may not know in real life. You have also probably seen media that has been generated by artificial intelligence, or AI. AI is a relatively new concept in the world of social media and is evolving very rapidly. You have likely learned to identify certain features within photos that clearly indicate its creation by an artificial source, but did you know that most of the methods commonly used to classify an image as AI generated become ineffective shortly after they are discovered? According to research affiliate at the Center for the Governance of AI, D. Cook, humans are able to effectively identify a real image containing human faces from an artificial one roughly 49.4% of the time. This means that for those of you who raised your hand earlier, there is a 50.6% chance that you viewed an AI-generated image on social media and mistaken it as real. Content on social media has a distinct impact on different aspects of mental health. One of these aspects is body image. Body image is the compilation of one's perceptions, thoughts, and emotions revolving around their own body. In a study by Laotian psychology professor Barbara Giosa, it was found that there is a clear link between participants' body dissatisfaction level and their frequency of comparing their appearances to those whom they see on social media. The effect that viewing certain images can have on a person's body image often depends upon distinctive psychological factors. It has been argued that the extent to which the images on social media impact a person's body image is contingent upon the internal message that they perceive the image as giving off and how this message applies to them personally. A person's gender has been found to influence the ways that social media affects their body image. Females are more likely than males to experience a negative effect on their body image when exposed to photos of idealized appearances on social media. The most sought-after factor in females' body image is drive for thinness. Professor of Applied Psychology Rachel Rogers acknowledged an exaggeration of thinness in the media and mentioned that a reason that its effect could be so prominent among women is because of the demographics' tendency to link their overall self-worth to their appearance. Researcher Elena Chatspoulou argued that male social media users tend to compare their bodies to that of users with glamorized appearances, and that males with low levels of self-esteem are particularly likely to find themselves taking steps to conform to the body image of these users as a result of this comparison. Psychiatry researcher Guy Caffrey claimed that muscularity is the most idealized aspect of male body image. As stated by children's psychologist Stacey Hodgkinson, children and adolescents who have grown up in poverty are uniquely vulnerable to developing mental health issues. The low-quality stress response that is typical among youth who live or have grown up in poverty plays a key role in this vulnerability. Since Vermont's Northeast Kingdom is made up of the state's 3 most impoverished counties, it is a prime location to study the ways poverty interacts with different variables. Child clinical psychology researcher Satomi Doi emphasized that similar to how a child's ability to respond to stress is generally weak when they are exposed to poverty, their self-esteem is often low as well for many of the same reasons. Since self-esteem is a key characteristic in the internal comparison and resulting effect on body image that exposure to photos of idealized appearances on social media creates for adolescents, a reasonable belief is that adolescents living in poverty are especially vulnerable to body dissatisfaction after viewing such content. One newly evolving variable in social media that has yet to be discussed in the published findings surrounding body image is the influence of media produced by generative AI. There's a growing usage of generative AI in social media. This is especially true in terms of text-to-image photos, which, as explained by science reporter Bella Isaacs-Thomas, people can produce through AI applications by providing an application with a small, selected group of words that is then used to create a photo or other image. This leads me to my research question. How does the prevalence of AI-generated photos that display different body standards in social media influence the body image of both male and female adolescents in the Northeast Kingdom of Vermont? I utilized two methods of data collection: a digital survey, which was sent out to a random sample of 200 day students at a high school in the Northeast Kingdom, as well as in-person interviews with 7 randomly sought-out day students. The survey was divided into 6 parts and included 4 quizzes used to determine participants' ability to identify images that had been generated by AI, their overall body satisfaction, and, depending on their gender identity, either drive for thinness or drive for muscularity. I chose to conduct in-person interviews to gain qualitative information based on ChatGPT's suggestion that participants being asked about sensitive topics tend to give more honest, clear responses when being asked in a private, face-to-face setting. Participants of both data collection methods were guided to review and sign an informed consent form prior to the start of their participation. The first section of the survey contained a quiz that I created. The AI versus real photo quiz included 8 images of both men and women. 4 of the images were real photos, while the other 4 were generated through a magic media tool on Canva. Participants were asked to select whether each image was real or if it was AI generated. I then calculated each participant's score to determine how successful they are at identifying when an image had been generated by AI. For reference, the picture of the woman here is a real photo, while the image of the man has been generated by AI. Sections 2 and 3 of the survey covered participants' demographic information and social media habits, respectively. The data from each of these sections were used to divide the participants into demographic groups for qualitative analysis. To measure participants' overall body satisfaction, regardless of their gender, I asked participants to complete Professor of Psychology Thomas Cash's Body Image State Scale. For brevity, I will be referring to this scale as BISS. Only male-identifying students were asked to answer the next section, which employed Professor of Psychology Don McCreary's Drive for Muscularity scale. I elected to calculate drive for muscularity scores among male participants based on psychiatry researcher Guy Caffrey's suggestion that muscularity is the most sought-after appearance trait among men. Due to the concept that, on average, women view thinness as the most desired aspect of their body image, female participants were led to complete the Drive for Thinness subscale of the Eating Disorders Examination Questionnaire, which is commonly used by medical professionals to diagnose eating disorders. Participants were asked to rank their level of agreement with 7 different statements. I then used the scores to interpret how strong each participant's desire to be thinner was. The interviews included 3 sections. Many of the questions I asked in the first 2 sections mirrored those asked in the survey. However, in the 3rd section, instead of seeking a numerical summary of each participant's body image, I asked them directly about their experiences with the topic in hopes of receiving detailed qualitative explanations. While I originally used a mixed methods approach to collecting and analyzing my data, I ended up taking a more quantitative approach to my analysis and used qualitative data to complement the numerical trends that I found. To begin my analysis, I calculated all scores on the different quizzes and converted them into percentages. I identified the gender identity and socioeconomic status of each participant, allowing me to divide them into multiple groups of participants from the same demographics. I then created scatter plots to compare the AI versus real image quiz scores with the scores on the Body Image State Scale, Drive for Thinness Scale, and Drive for Muscularity Scale among each demographic group. Finally, due to the fact that each scatter plot revealed a linear relationship, I performed linear regression t-tests to determine whether they had positive or negative associations. In moments when the analyses seemed unusual or surprising, I pulled from my qualitative data in attempts to support my numerical findings. This chart is not mine, nor does it represent my own data. However, I believe that it explains how to do a linear regression t-test very well. These tests are used when we want to make inferences about the relationships between independent and dependent variables in a linear model. I first gave a null and an alternative hypothesis for each relationship. Through using Excel, I then found the test statistics, slopes, and p-values. I compared each p-value to a significance level of 0.05, which is typically used when a specific significance level is not stated. When the p-value was less than 0.05, I rejected my null hypothesis and assumed that the alternative was true. When the p-value was greater than 0.05, I failed to reject the null hypothesis as I did not have convincing evidence that the alternative was true. I will now be explaining my results. Due to the fact that 89% of all participants reporting accessing social media for 30 minutes or more daily, it is reasonable to assume that the identified trends represent participants' daily experiences with AI-generated images on social media. In order to examine whether the idea of AI-generated images maintaining a level of realisticness sufficient enough to lead participants to compare their appearance to the person shown within a given image, I chose to compare their BISS score with their score on the AI versus real photo quiz. It was found that for female participants, the relationship between the two variables was negative, meaning that the success rate of female participants in differentiating AI-generated images from real ones increased, their BISS score decreased. This relationship can be seen on the left-hand graph. Contrarily, the relationship between the two variables for male participants was positive. This relationship is shown on the right-hand graph. These relationships suggest that for female participants, the ability to identify AI is linked to a decrease in body satisfaction, and for male participants, it is linked to an increase. Unlike how the relationship between BISS scores and AI versus real image quiz scores of the female participants was negative, the relationship between their AI versus real image quiz scores and drive for thinness subscale scores, which can be found on the left-hand graph, was positive, indicating a strong ability to gauge whether an image having generated by AI could lead to a high drive for thinness. Similarly, the relationship between AI versus real image quiz scores and drive for muscularity scores among male participants, which is seen on the right-hand graph, was also positive. This not only indicates that male participants' ability to identify AI-generated images is positively related to their drive for muscularity, it also suggests that the main factor in the culmination of the male participant's body image may not have been drive for muscularity. The outcomes of the t-test that I performed for each relationship among the AI versus real image quiz scores and the different variables of body image for participants who indicated utilizing some level of low-income benefits indicated that the directional trends matched that of the full sample size. For example, the relationship between BISS scores and the AI versus real image quiz scores in low-income female participants was negative, just like the relationship between these two variables among the full sample size of females, regardless of socioeconomic status. What does this mean? To understand these results, we must refer to Giosa's theory that the extent to which an image on social media influences a person's body satisfaction is dependent upon the internal message that they believe the image is portraying. It may be inferred that females might choose to disregard images that they suspect are AI-generated and therefore place more psychological importance upon those they believe are real, leading the concept of viewing exclusively AI-generated images to have minimal negative effect on their body satisfaction. Males, in turn, likely place more importance upon AI-generated images since they report encountering them at a higher frequency than females have reported. This suggests that males have a higher likelihood of overestimating how often they encounter AI-generated images. Since they believe they encounter AI potentially more often than they actually do, it is probable that they perceive the two types of images as yielding a similar level of importance and therefore likely compare themselves to the people within both types at a similar rate. These results are shocking, considering that other research suggests that females are more likely than men to have their body image affected by images in general on social media. I'll now be discussing the limitations. Due to the fact that the study addressed body image, which is often considered a sensitive topic, it is probable that some participants may not have given truthful answers in either the survey or the interviews. This may have especially taken place among participants who felt ashamed about their true body image. Additionally, little racial diversity was in my sample of participants. In future research, I would recommend more racial diversity to see if race plays a role in the results of this study. I'll now be discussing my conclusions. So my first conclusion is that viewing AI-generated images does not have a negative impact on females' body satisfaction, while it has a direct negative impact on the body satisfaction of males. My next conclusion is that drive for thinness still appears to be the most influential factor in females' body image. Drive for muscularity, however, is potentially not as influential in males' body image as originally thought. And finally, poverty does not play a role in the effects that viewing AI-generated images have on body image. My sources are available upon request, and I will now take this time to answer any questions. Yeah, so I do think that could be a reason. I also think that as society evolves, males tend to consider different aspects of body image and therefore over time have become less obsessed with muscularity.
So do you think like more representation of like more real body types would help, I guess especially women in this case, feeling more comfortable in their body?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you could see in my comparison between an AI-generated image and a real image, they're very realistic. So a lot of times AI can generate like over-exaggerated aspects. So like, for example, they can over-exaggerate like muscles. They can make them seem like unrealistically vague, but due to other details in the images, the person in the image seems very real, so a person might accidentally compare themselves to something that isn't real and therefore have like unrealistic expectations for themselves.
How prevalent do you think this issue is within like both female and males within different societal standards?
Oh, yes, that's a great question. So in other research that I read, different cultures have different standards for their body image. So I think that, I mean, depending on how well a different country can access social media, this is certainly prevalent among different cultures and can definitely be applied to their different aspects of preferred body image.